Hi BookTube, Sean here. Hope you're all doing well, and welcome back to my channel. Hope you had a great Christmas and New Year. You had some time with friends and family if you celebrate it, and you're now ready and raring to go as much as I am in 2018. And today, I never want to break with conformity. I thought I would do my 2017 year in review and take a look forward at what I want to achieve with my reading and with the channel in 2018. So I've got some stats down here on my tablet, which I'm going to be referring down to, but in summary, 2017 for me was a great reading year, both in terms of the number of books that I read and in terms of the quality. Before I kind of started my BookTube channel middle of last year, and before I started watching BookTube seriously, I mean I dabbled before that in sort of the middle of 2016 I guess, my average kind of reading per year would be 25 to 30 books, so roughly a couple per month. Not huge numbers in BookTube terms, but I guess compared to the general population, a significant number more than your average person would read. So in 2017, I was startled to see that when I totted it all up, I'd read 101 books. Although 21 of those were graphic novels, I think 80 full-length novels is still a massive step up for me. And I'm quite proud of getting through that many books. And I was trying to figure out, how did I do that? Where did all this time come from? Was I previously kind of sat on my arse most of the time just contemplating the world go by when I could have been reading? And I think there are two main drivers behind it. One, I'm watching far less television than I used to. It's probably only 2 or 3 different TV shows where I'm working my way through the box set, and previously I would have been watching a lot more television, so I think that's a good thing. And the second thing is, and this has been aided by BookTube and also readathons that I've been involved in through BookTube, is just being more disciplined and focused with my reading. Now there are some dangers to that, and I think that's a topic for another video, about whether you start to feel eventually like you are some kind of robot, some kind of production line where you're reading a book and then putting that down and picking one up straight away without giving yourself the time to kind of contemplate what you've just read. But on the whole, my reading year has been great, both in terms of the numbers and, as I say, the quality has been good as well, thankfully. So of that 101 books that I read, 12 of them were 5-star reads and 52 of them were 4 stars or up. Now again, I was trying to think, is this just because I'm an incredibly generous when I'm marking the books? You know, 52 of them being over 4 stars seems quite high, and I only had 14 that were 2 stars and less. And I think again, this is down, the quality is probably down to BookTube, because previously when I bought a book, I used to buy a lot of books, you know, just kind of impulse buys. Now when I buy a book, it's largely been informed by people that I've seen on BookTube's, reviews that I've seen on book blogs, and that it means, and also the fact that a number of these people are people whose reviews I respect or have similar reading taste to me, which means when I am going into a book, I already have quite a lot of insight into whether that is going to be a good read for me or not. And I just wonder whether that was other people's experience when they first get onto BookTube and you're seeing more reviews about the quality of the books going up because you've got a lot more insight and background knowledge before you decide to buy and read a book. Some of the stats very quickly then. 26 of the books that I read were non-fiction, mostly history and nature writing, so about 25%, and I'm quite pleased with that. It's something I want to continue into next year. 30% of the books that I read were from the library, so that, again, this is something that a metric that I want to continue monitoring and hopefully drive even higher in 2018, this year. And the reason for that is, although I'm in a very privileged position of being able to buy books, get the books that I want when I want them, I think there is still, or at least I feel, a responsibility that library usage is very important. If we don't use our local libraries, particularly in this country, in the UK, a large number have closed in the past few years, we're going to lose them. So I really want to take advantage of the library, not just for saving myself money, but also for the fact that I think it's an important social thing to do to retain those services. So that's about it for 2017. In summary, a very good year. Now, what do I want to achieve in 2018 in terms of reading? Let's talk about the Goodreads goal first. There's been, again, some debate that I've seen on BookTube about this. Some people thinking that it applies pressure if you set it high, and therefore setting something more reasonable or even low, and then adjusting it later in the year. And other people are saying, well, if it's a target, then it should stretch your reading. You should be aiming higher. That's the purpose of a target, right? Otherwise, what's the point in setting one? And I must confess that I've set mine at, I set it at 100 books, but I must confess that a target on that I've set personally on an arbitrary target at that, on some website that probably nobody else cares about, doesn't necessarily pressurize me. And although I've set it at 100, and I think that's quite achievable given that I will still be reading a large number of graphic novels, maybe 20 to 30 graphic novels this year, and also the fact that my reading wasn't as prolific in the beginning part of 2017 as it was towards the end, with different readathons and so on. And therefore, if I had been reading at the same level throughout the year, I'd have probably been closer to 120 or 130 books last year. So I think 100 is reasonable, but it doesn't really apply pressure to me. I'm not going to get anxious if I'm not, meeting a certain number of books throughout the year. It's just something to set yourself to try and drive your reading, and if you don't achieve it, so what? It's not really something that's going to apply pressure. That's what I've set it at 100 books. In terms of some of the more specific challenges, and again, this was quite interesting as I was mulling over in early December what I might want to do with my reading in 2018, and then started to see these videos coming through of other people setting their targets. There's an awful lot of commonality around the kind of preoccupations that we have, the things we want to achieve across BookTube. And certainly there's a lot of what I'm going to say here is what's already been raised on other people's channels, which I think is kind of interesting that it's the same things, or a lot of the same things. First one is I want to reread more books, and I've actually got a couple here that I want to reread in the first 3 months. One is Arundhati Roy's 1997 debut novel, A God of Small Things, which I absolutely loved, and I've read this probably a couple of 3 times, but I haven't read it in a number of years. And I picked up a second novel, which was longlisted for the Booker last year, The Ministry of Utmost Happiness, a book that seemed to, shall we say, divide opinion. And I just wanted to reread this, to see whether I still felt the same way about this book, but also to contrast it with a second book written after a period of 20 years where she didn't put out any full-length novels. And the second one, and now that I'm over 40, I think it's legitimate for me to start regressing to my childhood. So I'm going to try and reread some of the books that I really enjoyed in my teenage years. And I wanted to reread this one, David Gemmell's Legend, which is a fantasy book, which I read a number of times in my teenage years. Really loved this. And I just want to see whether it has the same impact on me now that I'm older. So rereading, that's one thing. And just while I'm on the topic of rereading, I'll just signpost you to a readathon that is taking place, that is hosted by Catalyst Reads. It's called the Rereadathon, and as you may have guessed from the title, the purpose of it is to get people to reread more books, because often on BookTube some people I think feel pressure to read new releases, particularly to keep up with the trends, and rereading can be seen as, well, I could be reading something else, a new release. Why would I want to reread something that is that I've already read? So I think it's important to do rereads, and it's a very loose, informal readathon, which you can dip in and out of. So I'll signpost his launch video for that down below. Second is that I want to try and catch up or finish some of the series that I started over the past couple of years. One of my main objectives in 2017 was to read more fantasy and sci-fi, and of course a consequence of that is some fantasy and sci-fi books are written in series, so you get into the middle of these series and then have to wait for books to come out. So I want to catch up on some of those during 2018. I'll do a separate video on the series that I want to catch up on, and including a couple of series that I actually want to start in 2018. Third goal, I'd like to read more classics. I've got a shelf with some classics on behind me, including books like Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad and Henry James' Portrait of a Lady, and others. And I'd also, incorporating into that, I would like to read more classic sci-fi. So if anybody's got any suggestions about books to start with, the likes of Asimov, Philip K. Dick, John Wyndham, Robert Heinlein, people like that, I'd like to read more of those kind of books. So if anybody can signpost me some starting points on that, I'll start to pick those up later in the year. And then some final reading goals. Non-fiction, I want to continue to read maybe 25 to 30% non-fiction. I don't think that'll be difficult. There's a history book group that's being hosted by Gemma on Nonfic Books. I'll link a launch video for that down below, which I'm going to dip in and out of. And I've already picked up the first book for that and started reading that. So I don't think my non-fiction reading, it'll be difficult to keep it between 25 and 30%. And then finally, I don't know whether this is a reading goal, but it's just something I want to try and do. I'd like to be a little bit more selective and astute about the way I buy books and utilise the library. What I tend to do is, at the moment, as I say, I'm in the privileged position of being able to buy books when I want them, and when new releases come out, I tend to buy quite a lot in hardback. It goes on my shelf, it doesn't get read because I'm reading other things, and then I see it at half the price in paperback or in the library later on in the year. So I think I just need to it's not a book buying ban, because that seems to me to be the BookTube equivalent of joining the gym in January, and then you're stuffing your face with cake by the time you get to the beginning of February. So I'm not going to go on a book buying ban, but I just want to be a little bit more clever, and I'm going to start tracking my book purchases, and also, as I mentioned earlier, the library usage as well. I want to just be a little bit more clever about how I do that. In terms of the channel then, just some very quick goals. The first one should be self-evident, I've mentioned it before. One is regular content. This is a challenge I want to set myself. I know some people just post when they want to, and I don't feel particular pressure to get content up there, but I just think if I want to do this and I want to grow my channel, and I only am, I don't have any subscriber goals as such, but I would like to get at some stage to over 100 subscribers. I just think I need to be putting up more regular content, even if that's only once a week, maybe doing a Friday reads or something like that. Getting into that routine, I think, would be a good thing. I want to do, and this ties into some of the things I've already said, I don't do book hauls on this channel. There's a number of reasons for that, which, as I say, that could be another video, but what I want to start doing is some library hauls to let people know what I've got out from the library currently. That sort of ties into some of the objectives I already talked about, and also the fact that I would like to keep on monitoring how much of my reading is coming from the library. And finally, I wanted to kind of spread the love. I'm only a small channel here with 30 or 40 subscribers. I think it's just gone above 40 actually. But I think small booktubers in particular need to support each other, because even a steady trickle of a couple of subscribers a week is important to small booktubers and can help sustain your motivation, I guess. And what I'm going to start doing is simply signposting more small booktubers that I'm enjoying, and encouraging people to go and check out their channels. There's a couple of other things to mention on that that I'm also taking part in at various, well, not necessarily all the time, but I'm dipping in and out of these. One is the Blast from the Past reading group that I'm part of. I've only taken part in one of the months so far, so not been great, but I've taken part and I've enjoyed it. That is a reading group on Goodreads that is hosted by Robin on the channel The Driftless Reader. I'll signpost their channel and the launch video for that down below. If you enjoy historical fiction, it's well worth checking out. Again, it's another loose and informal. You don't need to take part every month, but you can dip in and out as you see fit, and there's been some great books discussed on that. As I say, only taking part one of the months, so perhaps not the best advertisement, but there you go. And the other is I'd just like to mention a Facebook group that Harriet Rosie has set up. I'll link her channel down below, called Bookish Stars, and it's as I say, it's a Facebook group, and it's a forum for discussing with booktubers and book bloggers issues, ideas, ways to generate more subscribers on your channel. It's a good way of meeting other booktubers and book bloggers as well that you were previously unaware of. So I'll signpost the link again for that down below. And that's pretty much it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please let me know what your reading year was like in 2017, what your goals are in 2018. And as I say, if there's any sort of reading ideas that fit with some of the goals I've set myself, like classic sci-fi, please let me know some of the books that you would recommend down below. Other than that, I will see you in the next video, and take care of yourselves, and hope to speak to you soon. Bye.